It is Monday, Birdland, and we keep the content going throughout 162 and beyond. Your home for Orioles coverage. We're taking it to another level today. One of the most illustrious people who cover the team for the Charm City joining us here today. So gracious with his time. If you don't know, I'll tell you in a second, but make sure if you're watching, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell, get your comments and questions in for this wonderful interview. Talking O's this afternoon on the Flex Zone. Let's get to it, guys. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Happy Monday. We are back again. More content on the channel. Yours truly, God's favorite host, covering the Birds of Baltimore, the first Birds of Baltimore, the Baltimore Orioles, as we do content each and every day, just about throughout the season and beyond. And today we are here with an illustrious guest, so gracious with his time to join us. I know in the midst of the crazy, hectic baseball season, if you don't know who he is, he covers the Baltimore Orioles for the Baltimore Sun. You can hear him on 105.7 The Fan and other various media outlets. You can follow him on X for his wonderful insight that I use daily at by Matt Weyrich. It is the one, the only. You know him, you love him. Give him a nice, warm Flex Zone welcome for the first time, hopefully not the last. Baltimore Orioles Sun reporter, Matt Weyrich. Welcome in, Matt. How you doing?
I'm good, man. That might be the best intro I've ever gotten. I appreciate you.
Really, I appreciate you, man. I'm a huge fan of your work, man. I know you're busy, so I appreciate you taking some time to talk about the O's, man. And like I said, they can follow you at by Matt Weyrich, the one and only. Let the people know, if they don't know who you are, a little bit of your background and kind of what you do to provide information to fans like me and others out in Birdland.
Yeah, I'm a traveling beat reporter for the Baltimore Sun and covering the Orioles for the last 2 seasons here. So since the start of 2024, my first week was the week that the Angelos family sold the team and they traded for Corbin Burns. So jumped right in, and it's been a ride ever since.
What a time to start, because I do remember when you did start and covering your work. Can you just talk a little bit about, just from your perspective of this ownership group? You know, David Rubenstein comes in, Baltimore guy, comes in with a lot of people like Kyle Ripken and others in his ownership group. And I think people don't realize they have only been on the job about a year and a half. Can you just talk a little bit and speak to kind of what have you seen from them so far? I know they've made some big moves as of late, which have shocked a lot of us, but just kind of what type of ownership group are we dealing with here in Baltimore?
Yeah, they certainly came in kind of in splashy fashion. You know, obviously, like you said, bringing along a lot of big names that meant a lot to Orioles fans and in the Baltimore community in general as part of that ownership group. They came in with promises of spending, and you know, ultimately, it was kind of like he came in expecting maybe a ready-made contender, and in a lot of ways he did. And this team obviously made the playoffs in their first year, but some struggles here in 2025, maybe that they weren't expecting to have, whether that be from some of the moves that they made with the offseason or maybe some non-linear progression from some of their younger guys. But, they did ultimately come in and say, we're going to spend some money. And they certainly have. They brought in a lot of talent at the trade deadline, expensive talent last year, including Zach Eflin, who was under contract this year for $18 million. And then they went out and had the single largest spending increase of any team in baseball this past offseason. So, a lot of that built in, and a lot of that because, they had a pretty low payroll before. So there's still plenty of room to go up from here. But I think that certainly there has been, from the ownership standpoint, a lot of coming in, trying to make the most of this group and still kind of learning how exactly to do that. And I think now after a year, maybe they've gotten a better grasp of that than they had this time last year.
Speaking of a better grasp, I did not have this on my bingo card, and maybe you didn't either. You can let me know from your perspective as someone who covers the team daily. I'm obviously from the outside looking in. Samuel Basayo, we know how great he is since the day they signed him. I mean, I've grown up watching the O's. I didn't even know they knew what international spending was. So to get a guy like Basayo away from a team like the Yankees, seeing this deal, Matt, can you just speak a little bit about how this maybe came about and kind of maybe let fans know that maybe they are trying to sign some of the young talent, but it takes two to tango?
Oh, it certainly does. Both sides have to be willing, and it was something where they waited up until Basayo got called up to initiate these discussions, and they came together quickly because there was interest from both sides to get something done. And this deal, the number itself, 67 million, 8 years, doesn't like jump off the page as this crazy big contract, but it is something that for Basayo, a guy who has been training for this since he was 12 years old, coming from the Dominican Republic, getting that upfront money, that long-term security, kind of fastened now as a guy who only had at the time 4 games of MLB experience. That's a coup for him and his family, and it's a huge life-changing amount of money that is going to give them the security that he was clearly looking for in this kind of deal. But also it gives the Orioles, a catching tandem now between him and Rushman that really should be one of the envies of the league in terms of the way they're going to be able to utilize both guys, having them in the lineup on an everyday basis. It likely means that they'll have to have 3 catchers moving forward, but I see that as a feature, not a bug, being able to get both those guys in the lineup. For Basayo, a lefty, and for Rushman being a switch hitter, a lot of different ways you can deploy those guys, a lot of different ways that they can kind of lengthen that lineup. So at least for the next 2 years with Rushman under contract, I think that this lineup just got a lot longer with the infusion of Basayo in it.
And I'm glad you brought up Adley because a lot of people don't realize he was kind of the first pillar to help with the turnaround with the Orioles. Obviously, last year, whatever happened, we don't know. They won't come out and say what specifically happened, or they're saying he wasn't hurt. This year, he starts off good, goes into a little bit of cold spell, gets hurt, was hitting well, comes back, gets hurt again, the other oblique. What is Adley's future with this team? Obviously, I think he's a major piece of them moving forward, especially if they want to compete in 2026. Kind of how does that play into what his future could be in Baltimore, and kind of how do you project it maybe with knowing and being around a guy like Adley?
Yeah, obviously, the Orioles, I'm sure, would love to have him. Like you said, a franchise pillar, somebody who kind of ushered in this competitive era of Orioles baseball, and somebody I'm sure they'd love to have around, especially considering he's a much defensive catcher at this stage of their careers than Basayo is, somebody who I still expect to handle the lion's share of starts behind the plate. Basayo probably will occupy more time at DH and first base than maybe he will individually at catcher. So, they need Adley Rutschman, and they need Adley Rutschman to be the Adley Rutschman of old. He has shown maybe some signs of that this year. Injuries for the first time in his career impacting him. Had never been on the injury list before this season, so it's a new thing for him, dealing with these oblique issues. I'm sure that both sides would love to work out an extension. He's just in such a odd spot right now with the way he has played over the last calendar year of, you're 2 years away from free agency. Adley probably doesn't want to, sell low on himself. The Orioles probably understand that his value is a bit tough to nail down right now. So I certainly could see an extension happening between those two sides. But I think that, it ultimately comes down to Adley himself and his ability to get back to being the Adley Rutschman of old, to really settle in and give the Orioles maybe some confidence in the player they would be getting long term.
Speaking of long term, fans want to know about Gunnar. We know how great he is. I think we sometimes don't realize how good we have it here in Baltimore to have a guy like him because as good as he is offensively, I say it all the time, his defense has kind of gone to another level and he's been elite there as well. Kind of coming more, I think, into his own as a leader as well because fans are always saying, well, they're not vocal, they're not doing this, they're not doing that. I think there are various ways to be a leader, but Gunnar had a little bit of a slow start. Injuries, I think the power numbers weren't there, but as of late, I mean, if you want to say he's been the best player in baseball over the last month, Matt, I wouldn't argue with you.
You could certainly make the case. I mean, we just saw on Sunday in their win over the Astros how he can single-handedly take over a game, hits a home run, steals a couple bases, scores 2 runs. So, I think that obviously the Orioles would love to have Gunnar Henderson wear an Orioles uniform the entire rest of his career. Being a Scott Orris client, being where he is in terms of the WAR statistics and just how successful he's been so early into his career. We could be staring down a $500 million, $600 million contract when it's all said and done. And certainly, it's been the Boris strategy to bring his clients to free agency. And now everybody, the agent works for the player, and certainly there have been exceptions to that rule over the years. And I definitely wouldn't rule out the Orioles' ability to sign him. I just don't think it'll come cheap. I think it's going to have to be Rubenstein truly living up to his word of being willing to spend, and in his words, have no financial limit, because that's what it's going to take to sign a player like Gunnar Henderson. $500 million, $600 million. You have to include what he's going to make in arbitration these next 3 years as well, which would be, probably around $70 million that you kind of have to bake in there. So there's a lot of facets to it. But at the end of the day, what it'll really come down to is, are the Orioles willing to spend in a way they never have before?
Speaking of spending, and it's not really about the contract because we're years away from him, but Jackson Holiday this year, Matt, just a completely different player. And I had to tell people, calm down, relax. It's only year one. We've seen this before. Baseball is the toughest sport as any to be successful at, especially when you're 1-1 and you have the pressure of having a major league successful dad. What has he done this off season to kind of prepare him for this season? I know he may be in a little bit of a slump right now, but his 162 is lining up really, really nicely.
Yeah, certainly. I think it's a big step forward from where it was last year. And really what it starts with me was his ability to handle the fastball. He just really couldn't catch up to the high velocity up in the zone, above the zone, was chasing a lot. And that was just kind of putting him into early rough counts. And he's taken a more aggressive approach this year. It's working on timing up the fastball, swinging earlier in counts, things like that, rather than falling behind. And I think he still certainly has a lot of room to improve. He's been slotted into the leadoff spot. He hasn't really reached base at the clip you'd hope for from a leadoff man, but I think that the Orioles see he has the tools to be that kind of player and want to put him in that position to give him confidence, to give him a lot of comfort in that spot. So when he does finally reach that full potential, he's already kind of ready-made and in that spot. So I think there's a lot to like from what you've seen from Jackson Holiday this year. His defense at second base is where I'm a little concerned of just the lack of range so far. Ability to make plays, moving to his left and his right. He makes all the plays in front of him, and that's a good solid base to have. But for him to start making the rangy plays to his left and being able to turn double plays and putting the ball where Gunnar needs it to turn, those kinds of things, I think are still in work of progress for him. But, he's just so young that there is still so much room for him to improve and to see tangible growth from him the next few years that I don't think, anybody should be waving any concerning bells right now.
Speaking of young, Matt, some young guys who recently come up and made an impact as well. We know about the Pasayos, but the outfield was kind of revamped, that outfield room. You trade Cedric Mullins, you trade Ramon Laureano. We know Tyler O'Neill. I think he just got hurt again, Matt. I don't know what happened there, but what about I love what I've seen from Dylan Beavers and Jeremiah Jackson. If you think about these guys we don't necessarily know about, but then when you see them, you just honestly fall in love with them, Matt. I mean, these guys are doing just that, both of them.
Yeah, both guys had high prospect pedigree earlier in their careers. Dylan Beavers was a first-round pick out of Cal. Somebody who certainly the Orioles had high hopes for, taking him 33rd overall. And Jeremiah Jackson, was one of the top recruits coming out of high school in his draft class. He ends up falling in the second round to the Angels, but was considered at the time really to be a part of what they were hoping would be under their new GM, a new wave of prospects reaching the major leagues. It ultimately didn't happen for him, and he had to have maybe more of a roundabout journey getting to the majors. But I think with both of these guys, the ability to make contact has been really impressive. For Jackson, playing a position in the outfield he had never played professionally and still be able to come in and show poise at the dish, I think has been really impressive. And then for Beavers, he showed a lot of power in AAA, and there was some swing and miss that he's been able to cut down on this year. And so far, that has kind of translated to the majors, which is a really good sign because, in AAA this year, he's 24 years old, maybe a little bit older than some of the pitchers that he was facing at that level. Not to say overcooked prospect, but certainly one who had been in the minor leagues maybe a little bit longer than typically you see for a top player. But for him to be able to show that, these changes he made coming this year can play at the major league level, I think is a really good sign and something where I think down the stretch as these guys get playing time, we'll be able to see if either of them can make a case to be part of the outfield or utility man mix going into next season.
Can you speak a little bit about what they've done at the farm level with the minor leagues, kind of revamping it? We know the haul they got back at the trade deadline. Who are you looking at? Maybe some names who could be next to get called up as we head into September, and maybe guys that could be part of this team in 2026 at the prospect level. That us fans want more. We want more prospects. We want arms. We want this. We want that. But realistically, who do you think could be maybe some of those names?
Well, that's good because no team has infused more talent into its minor league system over the past 2 months than the Orioles. They had the most draft picks of any team in Major League Baseball and was able to sign everybody, I believe, in their top 12, top 13 picks. And then they also go and sell at the trade deadline and add another dozen prospects as well. So a lot of these guys are not Major League ready players. They have Anthony Nunez and Cameron Foster up at AAA. Norfolk, both of them are pitchers, relievers, guys who maybe could factor into the bullpen mix as soon as maybe the end of this season or early next year. But the rest of the guys that they added all in AA, high A, low A, or even rookie ball at this point of their careers. So there's still a long way to go for most of those guys. But I think if we're talking about the next prospect we could see at the major league level with some level of excitement to him, it's Trey Gibson. He has been one of the fastest rising players in the Orioles organization this year, began the season at high A and has pitched his way up to Norfolk now. And really, his numbers in high A weren't super impressive, but the peripherals were really good. And the Orioles promoted him anyway. And with AA Chesapeake, he really took off. The strikeout number is impressive, but the ERA and the whip really dropped as well. A guy with a really interesting mix with some high velocity. He has a gyro slider curveball type pitch that really has some interesting movement to it. And, I think is one of the best individual pitches of any pitcher in the Orioles minor league system. So, he has the stuff to stay as a starter. I'm interested to see where he factors in the mix. I don't know that we'll see him down the stretch this year. That would be a pretty aggressive promotion for the Orioles for a guy who, like I said, began the year in high A to be pitching in the major leagues by the end of the season. But, if he can finish strong in AAA this year, a guy who's crept on to a couple top 100 lists now, including ESPN's, maybe this is a guy who factors into the rotation middle of next year as a kind of a depth option, depending on how many guys they bring in.
You spoke about the bullpen. We know about the Felix Batista injury. You even put out, some names they could go after. What do you think about the bullpen? A lot of kind of trial by fire. You got Keegan Aiken, you got Cano. Obviously, you got guys like Wolfman, Stroud, Geraldo, Garcia. You may get some good, you may get some bad. What do you think about this bullpen? Even I see Albert Suarez is on his way back potentially. Also, he could be a piece not only this year but next year. I don't know what we're going to do with Brandon Young and Cade Povich. What do you think about the bullpen? Maybe the biggest need this offseason. I know we need starters, but the bullpen may need to be revamped.
Oh, completely. I mean, they literally only have two proven major league relievers in that bullpen right now, in Keegan Aiken and Yuri Cano. And Cano has been struggling mightily of late. So really, it's pretty wide open for this bullpen and the relievers there right now to try and make a case to be on this team next year. Dietrich Enns is a name that stood out to me. They got him at the trade deadline. He has a $3 million option for next season. So if they continue to like what they've seen from him, he had a rough outing his last time out, but has otherwise been pretty good so far. A left-hander who can throw multiple innings, very valuable piece there. So if he can continue to pitch at that level, I would be certainly willing to pencil him in kind of heading into the offseason into one of those spots. And another name that I'm interested to see, and I think we do see him before the end of the year, is Chase McDermott, one of their former top pitching prospects who struggled as a starter, both in AAA and the major leagues this year. So they ultimately convert him to a reliever about a month ago. And so far, the results have been pretty good. Has been able to play up a little bit more velocity. The swing and miss has been there, cutting down on the walks a little bit. So really just all around good returns from him in AAA Norfolk. And, I would not be surprised if the Orioles bring him up for a cup of coffee here at the end of the season to see what he could bring to the bullpen. Because like we say, it's a wide open field right now. You bring him in and he could be pitching in the 7th, 8th inning. Within a matter of days with the state of this bullpen right now. So there's certainly a lot of opportunity for a guy like him to show what he can do.
Real quick, I gotta ask you, Kyle Bradish, Tyler Wells. I guess Tyler Wells is going to be getting a chance to start. We know Bradish is going to come in, be Bradish, probably on the pitch count. Is Wells going to be a starter or in the bullpen? Sounds like he's saying he's going to be a starter, maybe.
It looks like he'll be brought in as a starter. I would not be surprised if the Orioles go to a 6-man rotation to close out the year, with Bradish and Wells both coming off of Tommy John, just wanting to keep those guys healthy, not to mention the workload that Povich has had this year being inching to his career high. Just trying to keep some of these guys healthy because that's been such a problem for this pitching staff all year long. And obviously Brandon Young is on the IL now as well. So, I think that that's the plan. Albert Suarez will be put into the bullpen. Maybe as a bulk multi-inning guy, but somebody who they aren't necessarily stretching out as a starter at this point anymore. But I think they want to see, as much as they can of Wells and Bradish for that matter down the stretch to kind of know what they can maybe bank on those guys going into next year. It's not going to be a large sample size, but if you were to bring Wells back and make him a reliever and he only pitches 1 or 2 innings at a time, that's really not giving your coaches and your scouting staff a chance to really evaluate him in this short amount of time they have before the end of the season.
Got to ask you about manager. We know Manzolino came in for Brandon Hyde. Maybe not long term. Obviously, they could be looking for someone else. What have you seen from Manzolino that maybe you like or don't like? I think he's kind of grown into the role a little bit better as of late. And who are some names, maybe, if you want to put your conspiracy theory hat on, of who they could go after? I've heard a lot of names, a lot of people in the baseball world that we may or may not know about. What are you looking at with that managerial search?
Yeah, I mean, as for Manzolino, like you said, he's certainly grown into the role. I think as a guy who had never managed at the major league level before, only had done it in the minor leagues, he was certainly the most qualified of anybody on the staff to kind of take those reins and, thrown into the fire amid a season that had been a disaster to that point, was able to kind of righten the ship a little bit. Certainly the Orioles still aren't playing to their full potential, but have been playing much better than they did earlier in the year. Whether that is directly related to the change in managers or not remains to be seen. There were a lot of injuries earlier in the year that Manzolino maybe wasn't dealing with, that Brandon Hyde was. But at the same time, I do think that the players have really rallied around him as far as a guy who is really honest and open with his players and not willing, not going to beat around the bush when it comes to things. I think players feel well communicated with over what their role with the team is, what their expectations are, and when they are meeting or not meeting those expectations. So I think clarity is all you can really ask from a leadership standpoint in handling that locker room. And certainly he has been doing that. As for whether or not they keep him or expand to another direction, obviously it's a kind of a trial period for Manzolino right now, but I do have to wonder if they're going to go for somebody with a little bit more experience. This is a team right in the middle of its competitive window. There's a lot of pressure to win now. Obviously, the front office has said that they fully plan to contend next year, and with all the money that they have kind of opened up in terms of payroll space from the players they traded and also the players they have coming off the books at the end of this year, I think there's a lot of room for them to make win now moves. So just how they do kind of restructure this roster will be a really interesting thing to watch this offseason. And, certainly having a manager who can guide these guys moving forward. Skip Shoemaker is a name that has been tossed around. He has some experience. John Mabry is on staff as a guy who's been around a lot of different organizations before. Maybe is somebody they'd entertain being that guy. Mark DeRosa is a name that has been floated as like a kind of a sexy candidate, managed Team USA, Albert Pujols as well. But those two guys, haven't managed major league teams before. They've managed maybe lower levels or exhibition teams, things like that. So, we'll have to kind of see what the coaching carousel looks like, as well as far as, looking around the landscape of, every year there's a playoff team, one or two that moves on from their manager. Maybe, that's something they could be interested in. Like, what if the Yankees moved on from Aaron Boone? I would put him at the top of my managerial candidates list. Certainly with the experience he has navigating the Yankees clubhouse for over a half decade now. So I think there's a lot of different ways they can go, but I think experience is going to be the number one factor they look for.
Is Mike Elias feeling the heat? Is he feeling the heat going into 2026? Because if it doesn't go well next year, could he be someone that is possibly at the end of his rope here?
He certainly hasn't let on if he is. And, when he was asked shortly after the trade deadline, how aggressive he thinks his team needs to be, he stuck to his guns and said, look, aggressive isn't necessarily the word. And I'm paraphrasing here, but aggressive isn't necessarily the word that I think we need to be rallying around. It's being smart, it's being shrewd. It's sticking to the process that got them to where they are as an organization, and understanding that just because it didn't work out one year, maybe that doesn't necessarily mean that they have to overall have everything. Now, they have said that they are, evaluating everything in light of the way the season has gone, and planning to pivot in ways that they see, turning things around. But as of right now, what exactly that is unclear, and maybe it won't be clear until next year, and we start to kind of see how they navigate the offseason and type of players they covet, and how they kind of bolster this roster in areas of need and areas maybe where it might not be glaring needs, but it certainly could use some fortifying. So I think that certainly, with a new ownership group and one that came in with high expectations to win, I don't think that has changed at all. So certainly as we move forward, if they fail to meet those expectations again, where change might need to be made is certainly up for interpretation at this point.
Can you speak to some of the updates around Camden Yards? We know they were supposed to be doing some renovations. We heard ticket prices go up. I'm cool with ticket prices going up. If you make moves like you make with Basayo and others, I'm cool with it. It is what it is. It comes with the territory, the world we live in. Can you speak a little bit about what's going on, maybe with some of the renovations and some of the things going on at Camden Yards? I know they were doing some upgrades and maybe things you can speak of because you're there every day.
Yeah, absolutely. They've already started. That's the Orioles and the Maryland Stadium Authority, working on laying the foundation for the new scoreboard, which is much needed, in my opinion, in need of an upgrade. It's going to be the 12th largest scoreboard in Major League Baseball when it's put together. So that is going to be a big new feature out in center field. They're also replacing a lot of the signage and LED strips along the facings of the upper deck to be one long strip all the way around. So they're going to have, kind of all new immersive environment type lighting and things like that. I think that's going to look really cool when Felix Bautista comes out for his next, save situation. So interested to see what that looks like. But also upgraded sound system. They had a temporary fix for this year, but they're going to do a complete overhaul ahead of next year. And they're also introducing a new home plate club, which sadly is going to be in the same spot where
I
the
was
press
going to
box is
ask
now.
you about
Yeah.
that. So I know the press box is behind home plate. Is that going to move you guys? Can you speak to that?
We're just being shifted over to the left. So luckily we're still like at the same level, like height wise, down close to the field, which is a really awesome view in my opinion. But being moved, especially for me, I like my seat in particular is right behind home plate. I got the perfect view. So I'm going to be sad to lose that after this year. But, I think that it's something that was a long time coming. It's a pretty valuable space that a lot of other teams take full advantage of to try and make money off of. And this is, what I think is a part of an initiative under David Rubenstein and Katie Griggs to, make the ballpark have more what they call activation areas and ways to engage fans, not just with the play on the field, but also with the quality of the ballpark and the amenities as well.
With the season that's been, guys come, guys go. I know you probably do have a vote, and you don't have to disclose who you're going to vote for. Who right now would be probably your leader in the clubhouse for Orioles MVP? I know that's an interesting question for the people.
Yeah, it's funny because literally this morning, if you look, the WAR leaderboards on Baseball Reference have Gunnar Henderson and Trevor Rogers tied as of right now, and I think that it's pretty tough to do right now. I think honestly, it's going to depend on if Trevor Rogers continues this torrid stretch through
What
the end of the year.
what are
I
we
mean, if this is
seeing,
one
man? What
starts, it's
what are we
historic.
seeing? Like
Truly,
this
it's
guy is
something.
it's a new man.
He really is. It's completely night and day. Something that I don't even think the Orioles saw coming from him, which is just crazy to think about. But he was sent down after his first outing and had to go back to the minor leagues and come back up. And his numbers in AAA didn't even show this was coming. So it's been a complete complete career turnaround to the point where you can pencil him into the top of the rotation next year. Him, Kyle Bradish, and potentially an offseason addition could be a really formidable top three of the rotation. So yeah, I think that between him and Gunnar right now, it's a dead heat. Gunnar pretty much leads the Orioles in every major offensive category across the team. So if that's going to be the case at the end of the year, and with the number of games he's played versus a number of starts that a pitcher can make, I think the tie goes to the position player. But if we see Trevor Rogers finish the year with a 1.4 ERA, it's going to be really hard, even with only about 20 starts under his belt, to make the case against him.
Yeah, I've loved to watch that guy pitch. I hope maybe they can maybe extend him, maybe give him a nice deal. That would be an option. Real quick, I do want to get your idea of the entire MLB landscape. We know the American League is wide open. National League is kind of the same. I mean, the Brewers have the most wins in Major League Baseball. How do you see kind of things maybe playing out with the rest of the season? It's going to be a fun end of the season race, and the Orioles can even play spoiler.
Yeah. The Orioles play a lot of playoff teams down the stretch, including the Yankees in 7 of their last 10 games. So if New York is, kind of still on that playoff bubble at that point, the Orioles really could end their season, which would be a nice way for Baltimore to finish for sure, taking a little extra satisfaction there. But yeah, I know it's been a fun playoff race to watch. I think the National League is super interesting, especially in the NL West, with the Padres really fighting for that division title now. With all the injuries that the Dodgers have had this year, it's kind of opened the door for them. And I think that the Padres were the most aggressive treated team at the trade deadline. I know we've heard that many years before, but it's certainly been the case again.
We thank you, San Diego. We thank you for your
Yes,
prospect.
I mean, their entire 2024 draft class now is in the Baltimore Orioles farm system. But yeah, it's with the moves that they made at the deadline, not just for Ryan O'Hearn and Ramon Laureano, but to get Mason Miller as well. The state of that rotation right now, the lineup is super deep and can match up really well. I think the Padres are as dangerous a team as there is in baseball right now, if not the team to beat. Even with the Brewers, having the best record in baseball. I do just think that on a playoff stage, when we get there, that there's a little bit more of a proven talent base in San Diego. We've seen them go really deep in the playoffs before. The Brewers have hung around. I think, what is it, 3-4 years now in a row they've won the NL Central, NL Central. Even as they've traded guys like Corbin Burns and Devin Williams, and it doesn't really matter. They just keep on coming. That has just been a really well-run organization for a long time now. So those two teams in the NLCS, sign me up. I'd watch 7 games of that for sure.
Matt, appreciate your time. What can people expect from you? How can they keep up with you? And what can we expect in this 4-game series with Boston? We get to see Garrett Crochet this week as well. That'll be fun.
And Kyle Bradish making his season debut, likely Tuesday as well. So certainly a lot to come out and watch at the Bark. But I'll be there all week. Looking forward to this series. I was just in Fenway last week, so now getting to see Boston come here. They're a good team, even though the Orioles swept them that 2-game series. There's a lot to like about that roster, and yeah, getting to see Crochet as well. So yeah, if you are interested, go on over to BaltimoreSun.com, or my colleague Jake Calvin-Meyer and I will be out at the yard all week covering this team as it tries to once again play spoiler.
Yes, big shout out to Jacob Calvin-Meyer as well. Your colleague does great work also. Everybody over there at the Sun. Matt, thank you. I can't thank you enough. Maybe we can do this again after the season, recap kind of the last month or so. And thank you again for the insight. I'll be watching, listening, and watching your tweets. One more time, everybody. Thank you again, Matt. I appreciate you. Give it up for Matt Weyrich. Matt, I appreciate you, my guy. I hope you have a great day. We'll talk real soon. Thanks again, man.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Anytime. Thank you again. One more time for Matt Weyrich of the Baltimore Sun joining us today. Big up to him. Make sure you follow him at by Matt Weyrich. We just tweeted out the interview link. So if you want to watch, join in. If you want to watch live or after the fact, go follow Matt. Check out his work at the Baltimore Sun. He will keep you up to date on the O's as he keeps me up to date each and every day so I can communicate to you guys from the fans' point of view. But that's pretty much all I got, ladies and gentlemen. So we're about to get out of here. Shout out to Matt once again. Follow him at by Matt Weyrich. And yeah, you'll get all your Orioles news from him. We will be live this afternoon in about 2 hours for Monday Night Raw. If you can go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell. Let me know what you're looking forward to. Have more Orioles content, 4-game series against Boston. Kyle Bradish returns on Tuesday, as I mentioned. Tyler Wells will probably win season. Flores and the arrival of Garrett Crochet. He'll be in Baltimore pitching for the Red Sox on Thursday, I believe, the Thursday afternoon game. So appreciate everybody watching. KD, Alex, everybody in the chat. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell if you haven't already. Let me know what you're looking forward to with the Orioles. Yes, Terry McLaurin did get a 3-year deal for $96 million. We'll talk about that tonight on the flagship podcast. So much great content on the channel. We were live yesterday for AEW Forbidden Door, NXT Heatwave live tonight for Raw. So check us out and tune in with us there on the Flex Zone podcast. I'm getting out of here. I'll see you guys in a few with more content. Monday Night Raw, 3 p.m. start time, 2 p.m. Central, 12 p.m. Pacific, and tonight, 10 p.m. for a special episode 503 with the one and only Nitro from the Wonderkin Show joining us. So hit us up, hit the like button, hit the bell, watch it on X, come on over to YouTube, and we're getting ready to get out of here. I'll see you in a few for Monday Night Raw. Have a good day, everybody. Thank you for watching. And once again, thank you to Matt Weyrich for joining me. We'll have him on real soon. Peace, everybody. Thank you for watching. Oh, my camera's glitching.